looking for a reason, searching for a sign, reaching out with both hands. I gotta feel the kick inside. Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Just falling. Oh, fire! Oh, fire, fire, fire! Hey! Ain't nobody living in a perfect world. Everybody's out there crying to be heard, but I got a new fire burning my heart, lighting up the darkness and moving like a meteorite. Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Just falling. Oh, fire! Oh, fire, fire, fire. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe. Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire, fire, fire! Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. That worked out wonderfully. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us today. I'm RenéMarie. Welcome to the RenéMarie Stroke of Luck TV show, podcast and TV show. We're so excited to have such an extraordinary show today. Judy's going to be reading the press. We've had, but I just want to share that Jim, the executive technical director of the TV show, is having had back surgery. So we got to keep Jim in our prayers, and we think about you all the time, Jim, and we can't wait to have you back. But till then, we have to start this show a little bit different. And of course, when I edit it to post it on YouTube and on our website, I'll add the intro and the exiting videos. But for now, this is how we had to do the show. We're just so honored that Vinnie and Chris and Misty, right? Misty joined us today, and Karina, of course, because Karina is so dynamic, and she's just part of our family now, and so is everybody else. Once you join us, you're a part of our family. And we had Dr. Roxanne join us a little bit early, so we said, come on, Dr. Roxanne, because we know that nothing happens without reason. And this is such an extraordinary show. Judy will be reading the press, and then we're really going to get into some conversations to hear their stories and to hear,
how they're feeling and what they're doing and their advocacy for strokes and of course aphasia, because I suffered aphasia. And then of course we're going to hear from Karina what she's doing on her work in Florida. So Judy, go ahead and read the press and we'll start to have the conversation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Vinnie Keller was first diagnosed with endocarditis, a heart infection which is very hard to overcome and survive. The first hospital misdiagnosed him, and his infection went to his heart valve and needed to be replaced. He moved on to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York, and before the surgery, his condition had gotten worse, and a priest gave him last rites. Vinnie's surgery took place on 9/1/2001, and luckily he survived, but during surgery he suffered 15 strokes. He had issues with walking, speech, and was out of work for 9 months from his position as New Jersey Union County Records Manager. During 2015, Vinnie had his heart valve replaced because the stitching had come loose, holding the valve and was filling up with fluids and made it hard to breathe. 2018, Vinnie got thyroid cancer and had the necessary surgery and chemo and is now cancer-free. Vinnie will discuss his motivation and determination to survive overcoming depression and thoughts of suicide. His 20-year-long survival proved that Vinnie had the attitude and stubbornness to move on and to be there for his 2 sons he considers to be his saviors, and he managed to defeat everything that he encountered. Vinnie is the author of Lost Life and his second book, Struggling to Survive, a continuation of his first book, and a movie of his life has been written by a screenwriter. The script is being shot presently to various production companies. This struggle to survive at all odds is one not to be missed. Karina Sadita is the founder and Living Without Limits. She is a life and health stroke coach, helping caregivers with their loved ones become independent from a stroke so that they can thrive without limits, and has previously suffered a hemorrhagic stroke. Karina has a background in medical emergencies, BA in Human Communication from University of Central Florida, and Trade Certificate of Medical Emergency Studies from Vocational School, Puerto Rico, and knows what it takes to recover from a stroke and support those going through recovery process. Living Without Limits with Karina offers a wide range of services designed to support personal growth, transformation in areas of personal development coaching, empowerment workshops, mindful and stress management, motivational speaking engagements, and online courses and resources. Real estate agent Chris Atkins was 49 and top of his game, selling over $400 million in real estate, when on March 31st, 2016, he suffered a TIA and went by ambulance to the hospital. His early symptoms were extreme vertigo, nausea, left eye twitching, and slight slurring of his speech. Immediate CAT scan didn't show signs of stroke, and the MRI and MRA equipment were not available. Misdiagnosed but staying in the hospital for 4 days, on April 3rd, 2016, a new scan was performed indicating a left cervical fraction with damage to his brainstem, and that was his 3rd stroke that he suffered over those 4 days. Right frontal lobe hemorrhagic stroke had occurred. Left with aphasia and paralyzed from the neck down, doctors gave little hope. However, with strong faith in God and an even stronger faith to live, recover, and years of rehab, he shares his miraculous recovery. 5 years after stroke, he wrote and published his testimony to share with the world called A Stroke of Blessing. Misty Atkins, Chris's wife, will share the loving journey of his long, extended recovery with positive vibes for all. It's been 8 years since Chris's 3 strokes. Insurance ran out after 6 years. He never stopped trying to recover and continues his PT on his own, attending any gym he can, and has never for a moment been resentful or placing blame. He shares with our audience and the world his story to motivate other stroke patients to never give up. Dr. Roxanne Kaffour is a family medicine doctor in St. James.
Oh,
Yes, I know.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Wanted to correct.
Okay, I haven't said it. She received her medical degree from NYIT College of Osteopathic Medicine. She attended the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and completed the Advanced Fellowship Program in Anti-Aging Medical Approach to analyze underlying vitamin, nutritional, and hormonal depletions, which obtained through extensive blood work and scientific testing. Dr. Kaffour designs a personalized wellness program for each individual. The emphasis of the practice is to use a holistic approach to diseases, correcting and underlying depletions. With the use of with the use of nutrients and bioidentical hormones. Dr. Kaffour is also a medical advisor for MD Logic vitamin brands to assist in formulating high-quality nutrients for clients getting healthy naturally. Dr. Mike Evangelo will be joining us later.
He just joined us, Judy. He just joined us.
Here?
He's here.
Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Judy.
He's a licensed chiropractor in Paramus, New Jersey, and private practice since 1986. He is the official chiropractor for Garden State Karate Games. Dr. Mike has a BA in biology, teaching certification in sciences, 1975 from Montclair State College, a NA in environment studies, 1980, and New York Chiropractic College, Doctor of Chiropractic, 1985. Dr. Michael Evangelo's mission is to provide a state-of-the-art, high-quality care to people of all ages. He strives to not only correct a person's health problems, but to educate people so they do not encounter similar problems in the future. His practice specializes in treating a variety of conditions, from clinical nutrition to chronic low back, neck pain, to rehabilitation following an accident or injury. He also provides information about improving the patient's diet, what supplements to take, avoiding toxins, creating a healthier workplace, and increasing the overall quality of a patient's health. I'd like to let's all welcome Vinnie, Karina, Chris, Misty, Dr. Kaffour, and Dr. Mike. Welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. I love having a huge guest, because huge amount of guests, because it really adds to the conversation, by listening to Judy's press. I think we've all been in the stroke world. I mean, I believe Vinnie was, I know Chris was 2016, right, Chris? Right. 2016. And Vinnie, yours was back in
2001.
2001. So, and mine was, and Karina, when was yours? 2008. So we've all, and mine was back in 1988, I think, something like that. I've lost track. But I think the question to everybody, that has experienced it, and Judy, her father had suffered a stroke. That's how she
suffered a hemorrhagic stroke.
Hemorrhagic stroke. That's how she got into this world. But I think my question to everybody I want to ask is, Did you know about strokes prior? Was it something that was in your family? Do you have a history of it? Because I think that it's important to let everybody know that whether you have a history or not, that you need to know the signs and you need to know what to do immediately. And that's what I think this show is about, learning the lessons for people. So Vinnie, I'm going to ask you first, because you were supposed to be a guest on our show back in January. Did you have any history of stroke in your family?
No, I didn't.
You didn't. And
No.
and how did it come in? I mean, I know you had a stroke, but what was the reason you had a stroke? What was the cause of your stroke?
I'm guessing from the endocarditis, and during the surgery, because my endocarditis just like damaged everything and weakened me, and was forcing me to shut down.
What did you have? What was it that you?
Endocarditis was a heart infection.
A heart infection. Okay. So it was a cause of something that you were dealing with in your life.
Right.
So that's something that should make everybody aware that that it could be from something else. Dr. Roxanne, do strokes usually occur because of something else that's happening, or is it something that can just happen to somebody? Like with Vinnie, it happened because he had another condition. With me, I don't think there was anything else going on. Is there a reason that there's strokes?
Yes, there are many reasons. Do you want me to go into it now or later? It's up to you.
You could go into it very briefly. Then I'm going to ask Chris.
Okay, so briefly with Vinnie, endocarditis could cause what's called a vegetation. A vegetation is a group of bacterium that lay on the valve. And every time the heart pumps, the valve closes like this, Vinnie, right? So if there's a little vegetation of bacteria and it closes, the circulation brings it up through the carotid arteries into the brain. Okay, so that could cause a stroke with Vinnie, with the endocarditis, but also his valvular dysfunction. So what came first? Did the valve dysfunction come first, or did the endocarditis come first? So that's difficult to determine, because endocarditis also causes valvular problems, which are the causes of many strokes.
Wow. And Chris and Misty. Chris, did you have any history in your family?
I had no history. None. It was just a shock.
I can imagine. Mine was a shock too, because I had no history. What were the occurring signs for you that happened, like that made you aware, or made Misty aware?
Well, what happened, I was actually taking my daughter to a doctor appointment. And during that appointment, I started feeling off balance. And I tried to go and open the door to excuse myself, and I couldn't get to the door handle. And from there, my balance just got worse, and my eyes started to twitch, and I didn't know anything about a stroke, so I thought it was a heart attack. I didn't. So that's kind of the start of the whole process from there.
Wow. And Misty, how did you? When he was bringing your daughter to school, how did you find this out?
I was at home working, and I received a phone call, and it was our daughter, and she's just said, something's wrong with dad, and she hangs up. So a few minutes later, I got a call from the nurse that was attending to them, and she said, "I believe your husband is having a stroke." We called an ambulance, and they're already here picking him up. So that was how I initially found out. And I was about 45 minutes away and had to drive to him. Once I got there, he was already taken back. And it was quite some time before they would let me go back. And when I came in at that point, he was still having a little bit of the slurred speech. It was interesting. Some of his the effects were subsiding. He was able to talk then, but he started vomiting in the emergency room. He had severe vertigo, and he couldn't see me on the left-hand side. Those were like the beginning, but
Right.
they didn't think it was a stroke.
Mhm.
He didn't fit the profile. He was young, no history in the family. Chris had, he was actually in excellent health, did have high cholesterol, but it was managed at the time. So, you know, we don't know. We've never been given a definitive medical explanation for Chris's strokes.
Wow. And that's funny. That's funny. Not funny. That's I understand, because when I had my stroke, I was 26. So I was too young as well. And the other thing is that I never forget this. I had a cable vision gentleman come, and he was 20 some years old, and he went and he was in the hospital, and he had suffered 2 strokes, but they thought he was drunk, and they thought he was on drugs because he was too young, and they profiled him.
They did that as well. They thought he was taking steroids,
Yeah,
and he was
I was a power lifter, so they automatically thought I was on steroids.
they wanted to see his gym bag, what was
Yeah.
inside, you know, what was he taking, and everything was all natural, and you know, nothing to show or indicate that
Mhm.
he was not having a stroke, but it just, you know, it was just misdiagnosed. It was just
Wow.
missed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just
Wow.
missed.
So Renee, may I make a comment? I think it's
Absolutely,
great
you got
because
that.
these are the different causes of a stroke. With Chris, there was mentioned about a neck injury. So what Chris had was in the neck area, there's vertebral arteries that go up and they go into the eyes, the occipital arteries. So it's the circulation all the way up to the brain. So with any neck injuries, especially power lifters, they go up and they come down. And if I see this a lot in contractors where they're picking up the wood on their shoulder, they're causing clots within the vertebral artery. So they're saying that they didn't find a cause. This is the most important thing for me as a physician, is to get the history. I'm looking at Chris. I know Chris is still a power lifter, and kudos to you, Chris, because your aphasia is beautiful. So I know that in your mind, this is the strength of a person that had a stroke. And he went and he overcame a lot of things, like all of you on this panel. So I love, like, you know, looking at Vinnie and looking at Chris and Chris's wife, the emotion that came through when she got the call. You know, no one should receive the call, and we'll go into that later as well. So Chris, you know, powerlifting up into the neck area, you had a neck injury. That neck injury presses on that vertebral artery. That vertebral artery goes into the occipital artery, which caused the visual disturbances.
Wow. Wow. Did you guys have any information about that before, Dr. Roxanne?
No,
He actually didn't have a neck
I didn't have any.
injury.
Right.
She had mentioned a neck thing, like in the introduction. Okay. So
No.
power lifter?
But I am a
yes,
power
power lifter.
Yeah,
So that could be.
I could
yeah.
be. I don't know.
Did you go over back, like power lifting over your shoulders?
No, I was.
So you picked up like this?
I was a bench presser.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
But it could, but you know what? It's some more information for you to add to your file
Yeah.
while you're you know,
Yeah.
investigating.
Get your arteries checked, carotid arteries into the vertebrals. They're sonograms, very simple checks.
okay.
Should he do that? Should he do that now, Roxanne, Dr.
He
Roxanne?
could do that. He could ask his doctor about doing the carotid arteries, sonogram here, sonogram in the vestibular and vertebral arteries going into the brain.
Okay.
Wow. And we're going to get to you in 1 second, Karina, but Vinnie, how old, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you suffered your stroke?
I was 35.
35. So we were all young, you know, I mean, even Karina. That's very interesting that this panel has young stroke survivors that I always share that, you know, strokes are usually associated with your grandparents. And you know what? That's so different, so wrong. It's so wrong. It can happen to anybody at any specific age.
Even an unborn baby.
Yep, yep, yep. Yeah. Remember we had, when I was singing that one time, there was a little girl that came up and she shared about her brother that was born with a stroke. I mean, it's just incredible the stories that you hear when you're learning about it and you're on that road, you're more open to hear about it. Karina, you were how old when you suffered your stroke?
I was 15.
15. That's right. That's right. So, and did you have any stroke history in your family?
So we didn't have like something identified, like history in the family. But it was when you mentioned signs, the signs. I started back before the stroke happened, back at my 12 years old. I was a very active person, a very I love sport child. So the signs where things are happening, this is not normal, for Karina, was like low energy, the sensitivity at light. I was playing outside and I had a strong headaches back then. So those are the tiny things, the signs that, hey, something is happening. As well as, the frequency for the headaches is another one. And even though we didn't have that history in the family, after I started a journey back then and I started prevention and, treatments and how to have a healthy life, even though I had a healthy life back then, it was more if the family experienced high blood pressure and different, circulations and things like that, but nothing specific for stroke history.
Wow. 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 Judy, did you have any history of stroke for your father with you?
Yes, his brother had a stroke. I was very young so I don't remember too much about it, but he survived the stroke and he was in a nursing home in Long Beach. But yes, he did. I remember years later when my mother was in the hospital, there was a woman in the bed next to her who had a stroke, but I didn't understand about it. And nobody explained it to me until, of course, I learned from my dad's stroke.
Yeah. Yeah. I think strokes, I mean, Dr. Roxanne or Dr. Mike, strokes, when you hear stroke, it's like, it could be a variety of things, right? It could be
Right. It could be a
go ahead.
hemorrhagic stroke, which is breaking of blood vessels, or an occlusive stroke, which is a clot forming. So they're both categorized as strokes, but it's different from an aneurysm, because an aneurysm is like a really big break of a blood vessel. Because just to go over the circulation, I know Dr. Roxanne was mentioning before, but you have the two internal carotids, the two external carotids. Then you have the vertebral arteries go up through the vertebra. They form the basilar artery. And all five of those go up to the circle of Willis, which is in the center of the brain. That's where all the circulation comes off from. So a lot of times you can have a blockage in some of those arteries, but the body's innate intelligence. I mean, God made the human body to work flawlessly, but only when it has a proper set of circumstances, something I always talk about. But you can have a blockage in some of those arteries, and then other ones still are feeding that circle of Willis. So that's why sometimes when people go to the hairdresser or the dentist and their neck is an extension and it pinches off the vertebral arteries, maybe those are the only ones that are getting blood to the brain. So then that could cause a stroke. So, there are many.
I always ask them to put a pillow or to elevate. I sit on cushions and I have a pillow or something to elevate so it's not an extreme, because I knew about that.
Right. Even watching fireworks and stargazing, people had strokes doing that.
Misty, what were you saying?
I was just surprised to hear that and just thought, I'm not going to get my hair done anymore.
Well, as long as the neck is in an extreme,
that makes
extension.
complete sense. That makes
Yeah, it
complete
does.
sense, but I never would have thought of that. Man.
Or reaching up into a cabinet or going on a ladder and painting like this. A lot of people don't think they're compressing on those vessels, like Dr. Mike said. I want to comment on Katrina because she was young. Hemorrhagic strokes, they're usually due to what's called an AV malformation. So when people are born with an arterial system that is more pressure than the vein is what returns blood, artery supplies blood. there's an AV malformation where they start to develop, where they're mixing their artery blood, which is oxygenated, with deoxygenated blood in the brain. And then that causes what Katrina was experiencing at a young age as an athlete running. It wasn't her. She felt this sensation in her brain, and it built up enough pressure, because with athletes also, right, Dr. Mike, they're building up their pressure. Same thing with Chris, right? Building up pressure, especially with power lifters. Power lifters are like, they do what's called the Valsalva maneuver, which is pushed up. So with Katrina, that's another cause of strokes. You have, again, hemorrhagic strokes, like Dr. Michael said. Hemorrhagic strokes could be due to blood thinning, or could be due to an underlying clotting factor, okay, called thrombocytopenia. Okay, so those could be related to infections like Vinnie had. So Vinnie could have dropped also his blood count. He had an embolic stroke, but he could have had a hemorrhagic stroke similar to Katrina.
Wow.
Embolic stroke, that's an embolism, just so people know.
Right.
Karina?
That totally makes sense for what Dr. Mike and Rosen says, because the signs were to identify that I had an aneurysm at 12 years old, and nobody believed that back then. So that was the first diagnosis. Then also the other, when they start exploring more and making more deeper in the case, they discover or diagnose aneurysm and bad formation in the brain. So totally, one thing relate to the other as well.
Correct.
Wow. I have a question for everybody. At that moment that you were diagnosed, or you and what were you thinking? How were you feeling? Vinnie, answer that. Can you answer that first? It's so scary. It's so scary. And I think you were in the hospital were you in the hospital while you had the stroke, when you had the stroke? Because you had another.
I had the Columbia Presbyterian. During the surgery, I had the strokes.
Oh, wow. So when you got up, it changes our lives. And I just wanted to touch base, like how you were feeling at that particular time. I think that's so important. And my other question is, like, you never went back, right? Once something affects you, like a stroke or an illness or a diagnosis or something like that, it changes you. And how did you handle that, Vinnie?
Well, first of all, I don't remember anything, so I don't know how I was feeling. I was just, I don't remember anything. And it changes you because part of you just basically died. Part of me died. That's basically what it is. So.
Yeah. And so you had the stroke during your surgery. You became awake. How many days after did you become awake after your surgery?
When 9/11 happened, I came awake.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Misty?
I just said, oh no,
Yeah.
that wasn't a good thing to wake up to.
Well, at least I don't remember anything, because I don't remember anything. When I saw the planes crashing into the towers, I thought I was watching a movie.
Wow.
I don't know what's going on.
So that's what their focus. So tell us a little bit about your movie. Tell us a little about your story.
Well, I was at work and I went into the storage room to get some supplies and I passed out. So I came to and I drove home, but I don't remember driving home. I don't remember anything. I get home, I call my wife, tell her I'm home, I'm not feeling well. And I don't remember doing any of this. I called up my primary doctor to make an appointment with him. And then that was like the next day. And I guess I had gotten worse. So my wife called my father to come get me. So he came and picked me up, brought me to his house. And I had gotten worse. So he called 911 up. Ambulance came. They took my pressure. My pressure was so low, they said another hour, I would have been dead. So they took me to the hospital. My primary came, and him and the cardiologist did some tests. and they found out I had endocarditis.
Hmm.
I need my valve replaced.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. And that was the beginning of your journey.
right.
Your journey. Wow. Wow.
Renee, I'd like to mention something before that Dr. Roxanne was mentioning about Valsalva's maneuver. That's when you really increase the pressure in the abdomen. Now, weightlifters do it because they brace it's almost like putting a weightlifting belt around their midsection. It braces everything. And sometimes people growl, but when they hold their breath, it really increases the blood pressure in the brain. This also happens sometimes when people are on the toilet moving their bowels. Some people have had strokes on the toilet because
Wow.
if you have a weak blood vessel, the old saying, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link, that's the one that's going to burst. So that can cause that to occur. I just want to mention that.
So I know this is off topic, but I have to ask it because, you guys are sharing really simple things that we do every day, right? We go to the dentist, we have our hair done, we go to the bathroom. I mean, those are things we have to do. I have to ask this. What do we do to prevent it? What do we do to make ourselves aware when we go to the bathroom, not to increase the possibility of having a stroke, or when we go to the dentist? I can't let that pass us by because, I just think it's important information.
So may I make a comment in reference to Vinnie? In my line of work, I look at the causes of disease, right? So Vinnie had endocarditis, an infection in the heart. Something caused that. And very commonly, someone could have an underlying valve disorder and go to the dentist for a cleaning. Okay, so again, history, very important. Did Vinnie have a dental work? Did he have a root canal? Did he have these things? Because what happens, and I'm not saying this happened to you, Vinnie, but just for people to be aware out there, if you have a valvular disorder, that's why dentists need to give you antibiotics before you go for even a cleaning. I myself, I have mitral valve prolapse. I need to take antibiotics before I go to the dentist because I could get a vegetation. When we get our teeth cleaned or any deep dental work, implants and things like that, we're sloughing up streptococcus. And so streptococcus could go right to the heart and then cause again, infectious embolism, travel of a clot to the brain. And the second thing with Vinnie, he was under surgery. With surgery, sometimes, especially going in as sick as you were, Vinnie, because you were septic. Okay, so with septicemia, which is a massive infection in the blood, what happens, your blood dilates and your blood pressure drops. When blood pressure drops, you don't have blood flow to the brain. So we call that anoxic, okay? No blood flow, no oxygen to the brain. So someone may have like no embolic strokes, but they could have an anoxic stroke.
Wow. 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 So, so is there any way that we could become aware to prevent?
I think that's something we're going to be going over.
Wait, Dr. Mike. Sorry, Dr. Mike. Before, like Judy has them put a pillow under her head, or under her when she sits up. Are things we could do to try to prevent?
I also
Absolutely.
tell the doctor that I don't want to go down that low because I do get vertigo. I have positional vertigo. So if I'm sitting in a dentist's office and he puts the chair back too far, I could go right into vertigo.
Wow. Wow. Dr. Mike, you were going to
Yeah,
say?
I was to say absolutely. Everything in life's a risk. Every time we cross the street, we could get hit by a car and killed. Doesn't mean we don't cross the street.
Right.
We don't cross it with our eyes closed. We look both ways.
Right.
So the same thing happens here. When you're on the toilet, as we were discussing before, and everybody does it, that you don't want to be bearing down so hard so you're holding your breath. You want to be breathing a little bit. And also you want to be taking a lot of fiber so you don't get so constipated that you're forcing yourself. Just, little simple things like that. And also, not putting the neck into hyperextension. And it's pretty funny because many years ago at the health club that I had my martial arts school at and my chiropractic office, there's a sign up by the stretching mat. It said, risky exercises do not do. And you won't believe how many people didn't read it and they'd be just following the exercise chart. And one of them was neck rolls. this is something that they would do all the time in exercise class. And I can do this because I know my carotids are and my basal arteries in good shape, but to do a neck roll all the way around, that's not good. You should go from side to side, but not an extension. But that's
Right.
just something that, you're running a risk of running into a problem.
Right.
So we have to
Right.
look at everything we do and try to minimize our risks. And that's
Wow.
something we could get into the next hour or two.
Yeah, and that I think that's I believe, and I don't want to speak for him, but Judy, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Jim, our technical engineer, who had a back surgery, it was because he had a head jam. He did something.
fell.
What's that?
I think he was carrying a lot of magazines, heavy magazines to bring to some location, and he tripped.
Yes, something triggered him to have this. It really has changed his life. It really has changed his life. And he's in excruciating pain, Jim. And I commend him because for many times, we come on the air and we look like we're having a good time and doing our thing, but he has sat there in excruciating pain and on the back end and just sat. It just our first telethon, he sat in the chair for 6 hours and he couldn't move and he was in pain. So, but it was because of something so minor that triggered this when he was walking or carrying, that triggered his spinal injury. It was pretty intense. Chris and Misty, so I asked Vinnie before, what was the question I asked Vinnie? I'm trying to keep an alignment.
The feelings that they
Yeah,
had.
so yes, thank you, Judy. So at that particular moment, I know that how I felt. I believe that everything you do in your life, you're setting yourself up. And in my life, I've always gone into things 150 million%. So when I had my stroke and I was in the hospital, I was like, okay, how am I going to get out? What do I have to, I said, what do I need to do to get out? So I was zeroed in, focused. I remember going to, physical therapy, and you had to throw the sandbags or the bean bags in a basket just for coordination. And I'm like, doop, doop, doop. Okay, what's next? You have to go to the bathroom. Okay, I'll do that. Okay. I was just focused on it. Although my brain was a little spacey, I didn't put my feet on the ground. I didn't have my feet landed on the ground to be able to focus, but so how are you feeling, Chris? I can imagine how Misty was feeling, because I'll never forget my father at the end of my bed. I saw my father there, but I couldn't speak to him. So I saw my father there, and just the worry on his face. And I literally was screaming from the inside of my brain, I'm okay. I'm okay. But I couldn't get it out. I couldn't get it out to my father. So Chris, I know Vinny's shaking his head over there. We'll get back to you in 1 second. But Chris, what about you? How did you?
Well, I would have to, similar to you. I was just figuring, well, how do I get out of this situation? I'm going to fight it. And it was, when you're in that moment, you think to yourself, first of all, I can't believe I'm in this situation, but I'm in it. So I'm in it. Let's deal with it head on, and let's figure out a way to come out of it and get out of it. And I have a strong faith, had strong faith before I had my strokes, and I figured it was a win-win. In other words, if I was going to go to heaven, then fine. If I was going to stay here, that's fine too. But I knew enough to know that if I made it on the other side, that I was going to share my testimony. And unfortunately, when I woke up, I had locked-in syndrome, so I could only look straight up at the ceiling for a long period of time, and that was very scary for me because I wanted to communicate with my wife that I'm going to make it through this thing somehow, but I couldn't say a darn thing.
Yeah.
First, you were paralyzed from your neck down.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I could only move my eyes, and we had to communicate by me blinking for what was it? Quite some time. Yeah, I was in there for 60 something days.
Oh my gosh.
You know, you just fight. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, really, you get to a point where, you know, you can tell someone's true determination when you're faced against life or death. And, you know, are you going to hang in there? Or are you going to, you know, you're going to give up? And I had the determination that I was not going to I was going to keep fighting. And one thing it would just keep coming. And I actually got to the point where it was kind of my sense of humor was like, I can't believe that I'm dealing with this now, but okay, I'll take that on too. And
humor.
Yeah.
Yes, you endure. That's exactly right.
Humor.
Oh, and humor, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, humorous. You got to have the humor too, because you're in this situation. You're thinking to yourself, you know, that's a good way to get to help you to get through this, because you're in this situation. You can't communicate with anyone, so you're. I'm laughing in my mind. I'm like, this is almost comical that I'm having all this coming, and you can hear everything in a coma. So I could hear all the doctors, all the negativity, and my wife, God bless her, would tell people to leave. You know, it wasn't good to have the negativity, and I was applauding her in my mind.
Yeah.
I was thinking, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to hear the negativity. And when you hear a doctor say they're considering pulling the plug, and you're like, you know, please don't. But you can't communicate that. That's a helpless feeling.
Well,
I just want to add that when my dad had the hemorrhagic stroke and I went to the hospital, I'm waiting on the line to find out who the neurologist is. And I had just asked the receptionist who the neurologist was, and I gave my name. All of a sudden, this big man shoves me off the line and goes up and says, "Do I have any messages?" And she goes, "Yes. You just shoved the daughter of your newest patient off the line." Then he says to me, he says, "Your dad had a hemorrhagic stroke. He's not going to make it. He's going to die either today, tomorrow, this week, one of these days, and there's nothing you could do about it." I said, "Yes, there is. You're fired." And I got another neurologist. And my dad made it 3 years and 3 months after that and was able to communicate with me.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And that's why we have to have advocates, right? That's a whole different show we did this past January. We had we spoke about advocacy, because they know you better than anything, and they can feel you, and they know that no, this is not the direction that we're going in. You know, it's
There's one more thing. You have to have a healthcare proxy, because if you don't have an advocate and they want to pull the plug, the doctors and the surgeons, and these are the people who will make the decision, not the family.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think if I could make a comment, you know, and just hearing everything and seeing the signs behind you as well with love, right? So love, Renee, right? That's what your show's about. You know, when as a physician, I always give hope and love. Never give up hope. And just like Chris heard his wife, that was the love in her, and her saying, "No, get away." People don't realize that when you're in a coma, you can hear, and people could hear to their very last, you know, breath. So even a little bit after that, you want to, you know, express your love to that one that is sitting there and can't speak, and you're unsure. You just say, "I'm here with you," and have that love and hope all the time. Don't ever, you were right, Judy, in walking off that line and saying you're fired, because you never give up love and hope. There's reality of things. Yes, you could place out the plate, or more or less, and say, "Okay, this is what may happen, but hey, I've seen miracles, and I believe in God." And really miraculous.
God bless you. And also, anyone who visits someone who's had a stroke or any illness, and maybe they are in a coma, I had to pull my cousin, my first cousin, out of the room when she came and looked at my dad and made a negative statement. I said, don't come back until, I brought her out of the room, and then I said, don't come back unless you can say positive things.
Wow.
100%.
I want to add something, please.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, when you have the power of the human mind, the power of prayer, the power of positive thinking, you can will yourself to live.
Yep.
And you can will other people to live. And the same thing happens where you can will yourself to die. We cannot underestimate the power that we have within us and for other people, and to give people that inspiration. It's almost like a pep talk. Today's the Super Bowl. Vince Lombardi was one of the best guys at the Lombardi Trophy, giving pep talks to people to inspire people to go beyond their capabilities. And then some people never live up to their capabilities. They choke. So it's all in the mind. The mind is our most powerful, weapon.
And that's why I believe in my world, sports played a big part in me training my brain, staying focused, right? Karina, you do like sports, right? You were a runner or something?
Well, I used to play a little bit of everything, such as, basketball, volleyball, soccer. I was running as well. And it is very interesting. I was sharing one of my videos of progress, and one of the survivors says, you have an athletic style. So definitely, it could be described that way as well.
Yeah, it trains your brain. And and even in the music field, right? Because I'm a musician, but I watch The Voice and I watch American Idol. Like, those artists only get where they are because they have the unconditional support of their mentors. That's why they're able to push it through. That's why, because it's almost like an athlete. You're getting trained. You're training to do it, and honestly, I don't think I would have survived as well as I did if I wasn't an athlete. I remember, I'll never forget Pat Talaferro. My sister went out for softball. I was in fourth grade. You had to be in sixth grade to play softball back then. And I was in fourth grade. I was out in the swings and stuff playing, and my sister had made a team, and Pat was a coach, and Pat's like, who is that girl? Like, who is that? And she says, it's my sister. And she said, no, bring her over here. Pat let me be the back girl for that team because she saw that I had a lot of ambition. I was, moving around. And so she kind of like, that was the beginning of her molding me into the sports team. And I never forget, like, when you saw Pat's yellow van coming, you were there ready to take the stuff off the van, to put it down, to set the bats up, to start throwing. That was like a ritual. So when I had my stroke, that's why I was like, okay, what do I need to do next? And that was the mindset that helped me to success. Vinny, did you play any sports?
When I was younger, yes, I played baseball a lot, and softball, men's softball.
Yeah. So you learned about your training, so it is an important tool. It's 3 minutes to 10, and we're going to run a little bit over, but I really want to give you the opportunity, and we'd love to have you all back. Vinny, I really want to have you back to talk about your movie that you're doing, and the 9/11 story. I mean, that's an incredible, that's just the thought that you were in the hospital during 9/11 was, it just, you can't, could you imagine, like, the world is, the terrorists are here and the doctors got to worry about you in the hospital. I mean, I can't even imagine those doctors, what they were going through and what they're thinking about while you were, that's a whole story unto itself, which is probably about your story, right? Your movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the name of your book again?
The books?
Yes.
Lost Life and Struggling to Survive.
Okay. Yeah, people have to.
We gotta mention Chris's book.
Yep, I was just gonna get to that. Go ahead, Judy. Go ahead.
Stroke of Blessing.
stroke of blessing. And mine was a stroke of luck, right, Chris?
Right. Yeah.
Is that why you looked at my because Chris and I, Chris, you know, you could see who looks at you on LinkedIn, viewers that looked you on LinkedIn, and I saw that you had looked me up, you know, and I'm like, and I always like, oh, who, you know, who's looking at me, you know, because I'm in the career and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And did you send me a message or did I send you a message? I don't even remember.
You know, I don't even remember, but I remember the stroke of luck, and I thought, my goodness, that's how this whole thing started for me, because I marked out luck and put blessing, and I thought, wow, that's pretty neat. So,
Yeah.
you know, this is not by accident. This is a beautiful thing. What
This
a
is
panel.
from God,
Yes. It's a
a
beautiful.
God protection.
Yeah.
There's so much love here, and it's beautiful to see the love everybody shares here. It's great. So I can't believe the time's going by so fast.
I know. Well, Judy had a long intro, and that's why I didn't want to really, at this particular time, have you talk about your stories, because Judy had said it in her intro. I really want to give the opportunity to share how you're feeling, because and to share, like, you know, the next step and where you're going, and I know Vinny's doing a movie, and Chris and Misty, are you, other than the book, or is there anything that you're doing to be an advocate for strokes?
We just started a YouTube channel and a TikTok channel, mostly because we've found that so many other survivors and caregivers are all dealing with similar stories of, you know, the struggles. For example, when Chris he wasn't diagnosed till we were in the hospital for 4 days. So first they thought it was seizures. So they ran all these tests for seizures. His second day in, he had a massive, headache. And then they thought it was meningitis. So the third day in, they did a spinal tap, and, he went into respiratory arrest and slipped into his coma. And it wasn't until day 4 that they did a repeat CAT scan, and the MRI machine was up. That's when they saw, he had his TIA, the left cerebellum infarct, and then the right frontal hemorrhagic stroke. So by then, of course, doctors sat us down, and, the prognosis was quite grim. And we were told not to have false hope. And, and I just remember saying, well, we're going to pray. What other choice do we have?
Got to give it up to God. I mean, that's
exactly.
Yep.
And prayer works, and they said, the next 72 hours we'll know, whether or not Chris will be able to pull through this. So, that was, that was hard.
Yeah.
But we found that the support out there is not as available as we thought it was. And we also realized how many people didn't know the signs of a stroke and wasn't aware. I just trusted when they said things were happening that that's what it was. Nobody thinks in their 40s, or especially their 12, 15, and I mean, that you're going to need to know about stroke. There's a misconception, and you think, oh, that's for older people. And that is so not true. And I think there is an awareness that needs to be made, and that's not out there.
2 words, Chris. Misty, be fast.
Yes.
Well, and that's a good point, because by the time Chris got to the hospital, the facial drooping had, subsided, and he could move, like, kind of his left side, but he still couldn't see. But what the signs he still had was, his balance was really off, and the eye movement. He had no control over his eyes.
Yeah, my eye would not stop twitching. So balance and eyes are
So be fast is be balance. E, eyes. Anything different with the eyes? F is face. Any drooping or anything with the face. Arms, if you could stick your arms both out, or if one is drooping, that's a sign. Speech and time.
And time.
Yep. And that's important, you know, and Chris got to the hospital in 13 minutes.
Wow.
But those signs weren't, you know, and that's behind us now. We try to look forward, but I think there was a lack of, you know, knowledge for everybody in the room.
And it's important that you don't forget, right? It's important that this is at the forefront of your brain, that you keep talking about it, because that's the only way that people, you know, I mean, the world does not want to be, they get tired of information, right? So I think that stories like this, where you tell your story and you're an example for, if I would have known, you know, like it would have just eased it. So just learn a little bit, you know, just keep it in the back of your mind. We're just letting you know that it could be a stroke, you know.
So we don't know where this is going to lead us, but we knew enough to know that the quickest way in today's world to reach the world is through social media. So we've only been up and running 2.5 weeks, but we're hoping to do a lot more with it. And I want caregivers to know there's support for them too, and they are the voice for their loved one when they can't fend for themselves, and it's okay to speak up. And you know, and there are a lot of great doctors too, and there are a lot of great people that attended to my husband. You know, maybe, you know, that one thing was missed or whatever, but there were so many positive things that, which some people say, how can you say that? But in the end,
and it was also your determination after your insurance ran out to go to the health club, to bring him to the health club, and to get him moving and continuing. And that'll be another show that we'll do together.
And one of the other things we do want to talk about on another show, Judy, is your insurance running out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Your insurance ran out after.
That's our biggest, you know, that's our biggest, you know, we always say we don't want to go to bat with the insurance companies and the government. We want to start the conversation. We want them to understand how it's feeling. This is a lifelong change in your life. This didn't happen and it's going to go away tomorrow. It's going to affect your life, right, Vinnie? It's going to affect your life, right, Karina? It's going to affect your life for the rest of your life.
Right.
And some people don't have the structure in their life to be able to make it through without the insurance. But there's a lot of people that don't have it. I didn't have it. I always tell people, thank God my father was my father, because he took every bill away from me. The only thing he was concerned about was that I was healthy and I was going to recover without any what's the word I'm looking, any stresses. And I know when I was an ambassador for hospitals, when I go to support centers, they'd all tell their story, but then they would get to the insurance conversation. And we need this, and we can't do that, and I can't do this, and I can't do that. And I remember this one woman was just sitting at home, not doing anything, because she didn't have the transportation, she didn't have the insurance support, she didn't have all that stuff. So, you know, that's a conversation that we need to. I mean, you can come on board with us, but I know I was crazy, but I wrote the President of the United States a letter, and it was Obama. It was Obama only because, not Obama. It was Biden only because Biden's son suffered a stroke. So I thought he'd have a little more compassion for us. And I said, we want to be the ambassador for strokes in the United States, because you need somebody that has suffered and someone that knows and someone who has experienced a stroke. So come on board with us. We're working it. We're taking this, you know, I don't care who's the president. I don't care we are not stopping until we fix it, until we have.
We will.
Love it.
So, but we have to go because Judy's got to run. Karina, you're more than welcome to stay on for the next. Do you have a little bit to stay on to the next show with Dr. Roxanne and Dr. Mike? Because we're gonna talk about I forget what the title was.
Checking your levels.
Checking your levels to make sure
Prevention.
what you need to do. And I'd love
Prevention and
to
detection.
continue. So, Vinnie, Judy will call you to book you. We'll have a show by yourself and maybe one other guest to be able to really zero in on your story and your movie. We'd love to hear about that. And Chris and Misty, we love to welcome you back. Talk about the insurance aspect of it, and anybody else that wants to join us on that show, you're more than welcome. We always, we have a huge family. Judy will tell you the story the next.
We'll call you in a day or two, and I've got an obligation this afternoon. Actually, I'm supposed to be there at 11. I don't know if I'm going to make it.
So
But-
does anybody have any, I know Dr. Roxanne, Dr. Mike, you're coming back. Karina, you're coming back. Judy, Vinnie, and Chris and Misty, do you have any last minute things you'd like to share? Vinnie, you go first.
The bottom line is, after everything we've gone through, you don't give up. You keep pushing yourself. You keep pushing forward. You have coping mechanisms that get you through your life, basically, and that's what I have. And you have to have a support, and mine is my two sons. So I mean, I'm 1,000 miles away from them, but you know what? We talk every day, we Skype every day. I go see them 4 times a year, and I'm looking forward to being back with them one day for good. So that's what I'm working.
Where do they live? Where do they
I
live?
live in Orlando.
Oh, okay. I love Orlando. I love Florida. I'm a Florida girl at heart. So, well, do you live in New Jersey
Yes.
still? Okay. So you're by me. I live in New Jersey as well.
Yeah.
I live in New Jersey as well. So, Judy, do you have any last words of wisdom for everybody?
Always think positive. No matter what is happening, keep positive thoughts in your mind. Don't let anyone discourage you, and never give up hope.
Mhm.
Right.
That's Judy's motto. Judy's motto. Chris, Misty, do you have any last?
Well, I would have to say, along with everyone else, just never give up. You're going to have hard days, and when those hard days happen, you just got to dig down a little deeper and and try a little harder, but just never give up.
Mm,
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, and the power of prayer.
The power of prayer, yeah.
For us, that was, for me, it provided peace. It
Yeah.
didn't give me all the answers that I wanted, but it certainly guided us in a way that was helpful. And same thing, never give up.
yeah.
I mean, you just can't quit. You can't have quit in you,
Yeah,
or
I agree.
because it takes perseverance to recover from stroke.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah. Karina, do you want to add anything? So you're on this show sharing your last thoughts.
One of the things mentioned when we are back in the point when we are in coma, I always give this tip or strategy when I can, and that is before every family that is working or have any family members, before something happens, it's always good to have the conversation or strategy to communicate, knowing that the last thing as humans, the last things that we need or we lost is the hearing. So communication, if we are able to hear, we are able to, one squish can mean a yes, two a no, so they know if the person is in coma, they know they are still here. So few tips there, so to have that communication even in those cases.
Wow. Even before something happens, like you could let them know. It's like setting up. It's like practice. It's like, a game plan. If I ever do get into a coma, this is what we're going to do to communicate. This is what we're going to do to communicate. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining the panel today. What an incredible show. And we'll continue this conversation again. Dr. Roxanne, Dr. Mike, and Karina will stay on. We're going to close out of this show. Please don't click off until I close the Facebook live version of it. And then just give me 2 seconds. On 3, we always blow kisses, but thank you so much for joining us. What an incredible show. I believe that you just do your homework prior. Judy does an incredible job setting everything up. And then we do our preparation, but then we just let God take the lead and share with everybody what needs to be shared today. And we hope that we touch someone's life, and we're saving someone's life, and we're bringing someone hope that needs, you know, the hope. And if you need anything, just reach out to us. We'll send you in the right direction. We're here to support you and to bring hope to people, and to really be there for everybody, because it's a family. It's a family that, you know, we don't necessarily want you to join, but when you've suffered a stroke or you suffer aphasia, you got to know that you have a family there to support you, and that's us. So on 3, we'll blow our kisses, and 1, 2, 3. Bye, everybody.
Nice
Bye.
meeting you all.
Tú me haces nada.